There are big issues here. You have factions within the factions, and I met with a lot of them. I met with Abdul Aziz Hakim, who is one of the big leaders of the Shia, as well as others on the Sunni side. And they all have their militias. And they send their militias out at night to kill each other and kill people. And this question of safety is huge for all Iraqi people. There are huge numbers of the middle class that have moved out of Iraq. And they're living now in Jordan, they're living in Syria, they're in Lebanon, they're all around. The middle class has sort of been destroyed and moved away, and it's a real problem for the long term. So how do you get security in that situation where everyone's fighting for future power and for the division of the spoils? Well, as long as we're sort of there allowing them to do that, you won't get it. I believe the only way to get it is through this negotiated settlement diplomatic process. The only way to get it. You have to take the stakeholders, the various stakeholders, in any kind of negotiation, and begin to address their perception of the stakes. For the Shia, it is this long-time belief that the Sunni are going to kill them and dominate them and torture them and so forth, and there's reason to believe it. For the Sunni, it is now the belief that the tables have been reversed, and the Shia are going to do that to them. And the Sunni want a stronger federal government. The Shia are willing to have a more divided government because they know they've got the oil and the strength of the land in the south. The Sunni triangle is impoverished and no oil and so forth. So they just soon leave them out there. They don't care. These stakes have to be resolved. The division of the oil revenue, I'm not going to talk about the law specifically because I agree. I think the American companies are getting too big a whack at it. I don't like that. But the division of the revenues, however they come, let's say it's completely owned by Iraq. There is no American oil company, though it's going to be very hard for them to exploit it without some involvement with them, but let's say there is none. You still have to figure out where the revenues are going. And so that's got to be worked out. Right now, there's no legitimate leverage that's working out those differences. Until those are worked out, I don't believe you can answer her question. You can't provide the security. And that's why it is so critical for us to leverage the decision-making. Now, if anybody here has another idea for how you leverage that decision-making or avoid a complete total bloodbath. Now, some people in the region are arguing they have to fight. They got to have their civil war. Let them go have it. Anybody here satisfied with that? So you have to work something out here that's the way that we change the dynamic. Now, number one, and this answers that gentleman, the veteran for peace. I have a lot of respect for him. I understand where you're coming from. But the way you address the concern of the soldiers being killed today, and I said this to President Bush 2 days ago. We had a meeting at the White House, just 10 of us from the Senate, with the President, Secretary Condi Rice, and Cheney, and the whole group were there. And I said to the President, I said, Mr. President, you ought to change this structure by which the American forces are going out there and doing everything for the Iraqis. You can pull them back and put them in an enclave. You can garrison them. They don't have to be going into the Iraqi houses and going through this process and going, why do we have to have American forces going out and finding IEDs the hard way? There are all kinds of ways to change the modality of the deployment, but there's a stubbornness that just resists doing that. It's a conversation I intend to continue. I'm going to see Mr. Hadley this week and work on it. And this is something I'm putting all kinds of effort into, folks, because I do believe those words I said back in '71. How do you ask somebody to be the last person to die for the state?